If anyone wishes to speak on an agenda item, please complete a public comment card and give it to the Planning and Zoning Board prior to the board discussion and before public comments section is announced. If no, in no event would anyone be allowed to submit a comment card to speak on the agenda item after the title of the item has been read or considered. The total time for each member of the public to comment on the item is 3 minutes. Let's have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Frank Fernandez.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Chair. Board Member Gallen,
Here.
Board Member Burgess,
Here.
Board Member Fernandez,
Here.
Board Member Joseph,
Here.
Board Member Shepherd,
Here.
Chair Wiley,
Present.
you have a quorum.
In acknowledgement of board member absentee notification.
Yes, sir, Chair. District 5 Vice Chair Bruce Guyton is unable to be here tonight, so alternate Lucy Joseph will have voting rights tonight for District 5. And also, Board Member Anthony Brown is unable to attend. He had a prior engagement.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
if it's okay with the board, Attorney Early would like to provide an update related to attendance and voting rights based on an inquiry that was made at the last meeting, and I will pass this out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pertaining to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Sermons asked me to look into whether or not the board needs to pass a special motion at the beginning of every meeting in order to allow alternates to vote. And I looked at the code and I quoted the relevant section of the code in the paper that's being handed out to you. It's one line and it's in bold print on the paper given to you. Section 27-31, sub 1 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Riviera Beach. It states, alternates shall be voting members when they serve at a PZB meeting in the absence of a regular member. So because that language is already in the code, it authorizes alternates to vote when they're sitting in for a board member. No special motion is required. That language also means, however, that alternates should not vote unless they are taking the place of a regular board member. There's nothing in the code or in Robert's Rules of Order that would prohibit alternates from participating in discussion, and they're certainly welcome to do that at the discretion of the board. But again, because of the way the language is written in section 27-31 sub 1, they shouldn't be voting unless they're actually taking the place of someone who was unable to be here and is a sitting board member. So for that reason, the way that Ms. Weathers just handled it at the beginning of every meeting, we'll call out who the absent board members are, and we'll specify who the alternates are that are taking their place for the day, and we'll know that when roll call comes, those individuals will be voting on the items as they come up.
Thank you very much.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As you are aware, Ms. Early, there's a vacant alternate for District 4 and a vacant alternate for District 2. In case either 4 or 2 are not present, does the board vote on which alternate will assume the position for voting member?
Yeah, that's actually not specifically covered in the code. And in my experience, basically what happens is whoever is available. So it depends on availability of who's here at the time.
So if you have 2 alternates and 1 member is, how do you choose between the 2 alternates?
I suppose the board could vote on it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's been on the longest?
But
Right.
if there's not Honestly, that it would help if you had procedures that spell this out. So we're kind of going with what's in the code at the moment, but for the time being, as a general matter, unless that circumstance that you brought up were to occur, we would just follow whoever is in the seat for that particular, whoever's the alternate for that particular seat, if that makes sense.
So at any time, will we be able to vote or put something in place just in case something like that happens, to where we can use, like Mrs. Lucy said, use by experience or the time limit term or just some kind of parameter?
Yes, certainly. I mean, you could do that on an ad hoc basis, meaning as needed, or you could actually work on rules of procedure, which the code authorizes you to do. And that's something that I would have to discuss with staff to come up with something that's a little bit more formal, and it would cover not just that scenario, but multiple other scenarios.
Also fair, we can also alternate, because
Absolutely.
otherwise, that same alternate
Will always
will
be
always have,
right,
the other one will not have any voting rights.
right.
So we can alternate, but we can discuss it at another point, and when you come up with a reasonable plan, then I guess the board here will take it up. Fair?
How do you feel about that, Mrs. Shepherd?
Well, it's always been the one that's been here the longest. But now you can go at your discretion. I mean, either way you want to go, it's okay with me. But it's always been the one that's been here the longest.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I will add some context that in the prior makeup of the board, there were 7 voting board members and 2 alternates. And in that scenario, there was fewer alternates and less situations where someone would not get that opportunity. In the new makeup under the new ordinance, there's 5 board members and 5 alternates, 1 for each district. So that is a change from before that staff believes we should consider in any pathway moving forward. And just to clarify what I heard a moment ago, is it the desire of the board for us to assist in creating policies, a policy and procedure guide, if that's the appropriate term for this board? So anything not enshrined in the ordinance that we need to create a process or policy for, that we can that you all can adopt your own, policies and procedures for governing this board.
Absolutely.
I think that sounds fair.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it sounds fair.
we
Then no
will,
one would feel left out.
understood. We will work on that and bring it back at a later meeting.
Thank you, sir. And even though it was already mentioned on Part B, acknowledgement of board member vacancy positions.
Chair, District 2, alternate, District 4, alternate.
All right, on to Section 3, additions. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. At the last Planning and Zoning Board meeting, there was a request to consider changing or expanding the notice requirements for certain types of planning applications, namely site plans. Staff has a presentation prepared for that. So if it's the pleasure of board, staff would like to amend Section 8 under workshop items, or 8B, to be a presentation on notice requirements.
That for tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I will add that when we get to the section on the workshop for ethics training, it will be much shorter than you think. I've spoken with our HR representative, and we have discussed a plan for that will greatly shorten tonight's time obligation.
Make it even shorter, we agree. No, it won't fly. We
Second.
tried.
But that's all from staff for additions and deletions.
All right, thank you. On to Section 4, do you have any disclosure by board members?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask Mr. Sherman one thing. I think I mentioned it to him, because I don't understand when you are reading from Section 2003, the code and everything, when you bring this to the board. Now, they all have computers, so they can look up the code or whatever. Can you just give me a little synopsis of what I'm reading? Because I don't get anything. And when you start reading the codes, like last week, I was totally cut off guard. That's something unusual for me. If you give me the code, it give me a chance when, with whether you bring the book for me to look it up, and try to get an understanding of what is the code, because I truly, want to have an understanding of what we're talking about. I don't, maybe they do. Just a request for me.
Understood. And for tonight, I believe there will be many fewer code references, and when we do have them, it'll come with an explanation because we don't want to
Please.
reference things and you're not following because you won't be able to vote from an informed perspective. So we will. And actually, after last planning and zoning board meeting, I did speak with staff on that to make sure we're communicating clearly as opposed to technically, because there is a difference.
Absolutely. Thank you
ma'am.
so much. Thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, absolutely. Again, on to 4, do we have any disclosure by the board members? And adoption of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry, we actually do have one item from a board member that legal will convey to the board.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We probably should have brought this up at absences, but I just wanted to place on the record that Mr. Guyton did contact us and indicate that he was not going to be here this evening. And as you may know, the results have not been certified yet, but he may very well have been elected to the city council, and therefore, in an abundance of caution, he's not here this evening for the
Correct.
legal reasons related to that.
Correct. Okay, thank you. And also the adoption of the agenda, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, that's a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes that were mentioned earlier by Mr. Sermons.
What was the changes?
He added 8B.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
What does it say? Okay,
Chair, are we ready for the vote?
yes.
Board Member Burgess,
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Shepherd,
Yes.
Chair Wiley.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimous vote, Chair.
All right, on to number 5, approval minutes. What will we do?
The minutes
Do a vote
meeting
for
for
minutes
January
for
9th,
January 9th.
2025.
Yes. Yes. Board Member Fernandez.
I motion to approve the meeting minutes of the January 9th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Board.
You may second it?
I second.
It has been properly moved in second. Chair, are you ready for the vote?
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Burgess,
Yes.
Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Shepherd,
Yes.
Chair Wiley.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimous vote, Chair.
Thank you. On to number 6, unfinished business.
None, sir.
No business?
No.
All right, on to new business.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 31 of the City Code of Ordinance entitled Zoning Section 31-538 to include the option of a contribution in lieu of a meeting of the civil open space requirements for qualifying projects within the downtown marina zoning district, providing for severability and conflict, and providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. The presenter will be the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. For the record, my name is Clarence Sermons, Director of Development Services for the City of Riviera Beach. The item before you this evening originated from the request of a council member who requested that the board consider, the city council consider changes to the section of the Land Development Code governing civic open spaces. Staff presented, after that request, which was voted on by council, staff brought a workshop discussion item to city council where the presentation was given that you're about to receive right now. And after that presentation, council decided to proceed to consider an ordinance for it. So What I will do is, again, provide you that presentation, and the draft ordinance language is what was in your backup for the agenda tonight. And staff's request from this is that the Planning and Zoning Board, as the advisory body to City Council on land development matters, provides a recommendation to City Council as to whether you support this or recommend that they deny it before they receive it for actual formal potential adoption. So without further ado, I will get into this presentation. So the purpose of this discussion item is to provide a staff level analysis of the proposed text amendment language and solicit feedback from the Planning and Zoning Board. So this is related to civic open space, which applies to the downtown zoning districts in our land development code. So I will start with giving you an overview of what the civic open spaces are and how they function in the city. So this is located in section 31-538 of the code called Civic Open Spaces, and that section defines them as follows. Civic open spaces are maintained outdoor spaces which are accessible by the general public, improve the pedestrian environment, are aesthetically pleasing, and serve as an amenity for the city as a whole, as well as for occupants of the building which the open space serves. Civic open spaces are generally constructed by landowners when they build on adjoining property. So this is how civic open space is currently defined in our code. Applicability. This applies in situations where someone is developing a site of 1 acre or more in size for new buildings, or in situations where additions of gross floor area equal to 20% or more to existing buildings. So essentially, if you're building downtown and it's new construction, or if there's an existing building downtown and you're renovating or expanding more than 20% of that existing structure. If one of those items apply, the developer shall provide at least 5% of the size of the site as civic open space. And civic open space is, we'll get into more examples of that. As far as the location options that are provided in the code, it can be provided on-site or off-site, provided the civic open space is located within 660 feet of the building site, within the same zoning district, and within the CRA boundary. So on-site or within 600 feet of the property being developed. So a little bit about the origin of this section of the code. When the downtown districts were created, site setbacks were significantly reduced in order to facilitate an urban walkable environment. At that time, there were large setbacks, so you could not build your building any closer than 15 to 20 feet from the roadway. There was supposed to be a large landscape strip in front of anything built there. When the code was revamped to create a walkable urban environment, those setback and buffers were reduced, but the requirement for civic open space was added to the code to make sure that there was some open space for the community, but developers got lots of valuable developable square footage back because those setbacks were significantly reduced. So it was somewhat of a trade-off when these were implemented in the code. So these are the options that are allowed under the code for civic open space. At the top left, you have what is called a green. Sorry, I do not have my laser pointer, but the top left, you have a green. So you can see the square at the bottom right-hand corner. That's when you have a little plaza with grass and shrubs and like a little park. The next one in the top middle is a plaza. It's a similar area, but you would have more like hardscape areas with the fountain and that kind of thing, pavers. The next one at the top right is an attached green. That's where you go like the length of a block with a grassed, linear lawn area. Then you have a playground, again, which is an area more facilitated, kids play area and equipment, or you could do a square, again, a paved area with a little more space, or you can do a waterfront green. So if you're developing waterfront property to add land on the waterfront that would allow people to view the water, have leisurely walks or jogs or recreate and that kind of thing. So these are all the different types of options of civic open space that the code allows a developer to utilize when they're developing in the downtown. And so now here are some examples of how civic open space has translated to development projects that have come through. This one has been completed already. This is a part of the Berkeley Landing project on the bottom. Well, in this project, they divided their required civic open space square footage between the front and the back of the development. So to the rear on Lakeshore Drive, you can see they have a paved area with the trees, landscaping, and an art feature and benches. To the right, you can see the front part of their development where the remaining required square footage, they did a similar layout in terms of the paved and painted concrete art focal point to the area and benches. And both areas, when I went by to take pictures, were being utilized by residents. The next is the Oculina project, which was recently recommended for approval by this board and approved by City Council. Their civic open space came in the way of a linear park or a green on the side of the development. So you can see the landscape plan to the left. It's hard to read, but you can infer that there's lots of bushes, grass, hedges, plants, and trees to accentuate this as an outdoor enjoyable space. Marina Village Element 8, again, another project that was recently before this board. Their required civic open space is shown on this image. Just outside of the building area, they have created kind of a plaza and a green with several hardscaped areas, art installation as a focal point, and they are actually relocating a historic tree from that site to be the center focal point of the civic open space. And that's the tree that you can see in the circle there. Another project that has not been before this board yet, but is under review by staff, is called the Waterway Project, and they are proposing a waterfront green as their civic open space. So to the left, you can see how at the edge of their property, they have a planting and paved area, some seating area along the waterfront. So residents of that building, but also residents of the community can access this waterfront property, even though it is, privatized. But there's a portion of it that is reserved for the public to enjoy. And then to the right, you can see a bit of a corner plaza area where there's additional seating and areas for persons to enjoy the waterfront green. So that is what's currently in the code as it relates to civic open space and how it has translated into development projects. Before you now is the language that was proposed for consideration, and I will read it to you. It states that working waterfront projects within the downtown marine zoning district and projects within the port land use district may submit a request to provide a contribution in lieu of meeting the required civic open space requirement for consideration by City Council at the time of site plan consideration. The contribution shall be calculated by city staff based on the cost to construct those improvements that would be required to meet the minimum standards and/or additional cost determined by City Council. This amendment shall take effect January 1st, 2025 for any project submitted to the City Council for site plan approval in the downtown marine zoning districts. So again, that is the language that was proposed. Effectively, it states that if you are developing downtown in the working waterfront, that you can pay a fee in lieu of providing the civic open space either on your property or off-site, and that fee in lieu would be calculated in concert between the developer and staff. So staff did an analysis based on the land development code, but also from a legal perspective. On the legal side, it was proposed that the language be retroactive until January 1st of this year is when it would become applicable. That is legally defensible, that's possible. It wouldn't be an issue with allowing to backdate the start of when this would take effect. The other findings on the legal side were that revenue from civic open space fees in lieu could only be used to develop civic open space, which means the funds could not be used for general fund activities of the city or infrastructure, roads, or that kind of thing. It could only be used to create civic open space because that is the purpose of that section of the code. So a fee in lieu regarding that section of the code would still have to be utilized for that purpose. And another item that came up during that analysis was that the proposed text amendment may not be consistent with the comprehensive plan policies 1.4.1 and 1.4.2 related to recreation and open space. And those policies in the comprehensive plans state that the city, through its land development regulations, shall continue to add public and private open space to its inventory for city residents. 1.4.2 states the city shall assure provision of public open spaces in the CRA through the redevelopment planning process and land development codes. So again, that is to say that if the city moves forward with this proposed amendment, that there are some considerations that need to be made as far as its consistency with the comp plan. So that was something that was thought through before the language in your packet was drafted. And then from the land development planning side, there are some advantages of this. It would allow for additional flexibility for developers if this fee in lieu was imposed. It also would create revenue for city-led improvements. So instead of the developer creating civic open space on site, they would give the money to the city, and then the city staff would have funds to develop civic open space somewhere in the allowable area. Disadvantages: it could lead to additional amendments from future developers. Some developers not in the working waterfront district may say or propose a similar text amendment so that in a different downtown zoning district, they would like a fee in lieu option as well. So that consideration is something that staff could foresee being an outcome of this. Additionally, it removes the guarantee of citizen spaces in our future downtown. One thing that our downtown code does do, that as it envisions our Broadway corridor area being fully built out and redeveloped, this section of the code does guarantee that when that happens, there are going to be some spaces for all citizens that are still contained in that downtown area. And so that's one of the few areas of our code that we can point to that are guaranteed to everyone, not just those who are using the potential, space that is being redeveloped. So this does remove that guarantee as new projects are redeveloped. So that is a disadvantage consideration. It also creates additional projects and long-term maintenance costs for the city. As it stands, when a civic open space is developed, it's still on the property of the development, and it is still their property to maintain in perpetuity for the community. If the city is developing the civic open space, it essentially is added to our existing park system, which we, of course, always have to make sure we are garnering enough resources to operate and maintain over time. So that is an additional long-term maintenance cost on the city that isn't currently contemplated in our parks program. And then again, the revenue would be limited in use. I know one of the ideas behind this, based on the discussion from City Council, was potential funding for infrastructure projects. But again, based on the legal analysis, those funds would be restricted to civic open space projects, not for any need that the city may identify in its general fund. So again, this is the presentation that City Council received on the matter, and for your consideration, I am providing the same one to you so that you can provide your recommendations to City. But staff did recommend that the current structure of the code be retained, and the option of exploring other ways to achieve stated goals be considered. So as it relates to infrastructure, investigate sufficiency of impact fee rates if the goal is to provide more funding for infrastructure. Strengthen requirements for development impacts and offsite improvements. So if a development is coming through and there's an identified need for infrastructure near and with a nexus to what's being developed and would be operated for a project, that we strengthen our ability to make sure that those contributions or offsite improvements are made to address any infrastructure needs that are near a project. In terms of creating additional flexibility for developments, The options of expanding locations for providing civic open space, as I stated, right now in the code, it has to be within 600 feet of the project. But if our goal is to provide additional flexibility, that we increase it from 600 feet to maybe double that or anywhere in the downtown districts. But an option could be giving additional flexibility, including the timing of when the civic open space may be provided. These are all things that could, again, help the developer be able to meet civic open space requirements, but also retain that provision of the code. Those are some other options, but at the end of the day, we are going to facilitate whatever is requested of City Council. The role of this board is to provide your recommendation to City Council so that they can properly follow through the prescribed process of making changes to the land development code. So at this time, we request any feedback from the Planning and Zoning Board, and ultimately we would request a vote to recommend approval of the proposed text language or recommend of denial, which is the same thing you do with any item that comes before you, so that City Council can have your advisement before they vote on the matter. And so in your backup, you have seen the proposed text amendment language that is very similar to what was read there, that it would give projects in the working waterfront the option of paying a fee in lieu. That fee in lieu would amount would be confirmed by staff. It would include land costs, improvement costs. They would contribute that to the city and be able to move forward with their project. And again, that's only for the working waterfront downtown zoning district, or I'm sorry, downtown marine zoning district that this would apply to. So with that, staff will conclude its presentation and respond to any questions. And again, we just request a vote on what your recommendation would be to City Council.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I have one question really quick. Can you go back 2 slides? All right, so I think it's maybe what you just spoke on would create the revenue for city-led improvements. And you spoke about that, but I was looking for something a little bit more specific of how that would create revenue through the city. What does that actually pertain to?
Yes, I can clarify that. So if a project was being developed as a marina, and this code section was adopted and in place, instead of providing 5% of their land for some type of park or plaza, they would contribute a certain amount of money to the city instead of that. And so that money is additional revenue that the city could use to create that park or plaza somewhere else within the downtown area.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I'm gonna start with Mrs. Shepherd. Do you have a question? Do you have a
Back to me last, Mr. Chair, please.
Yes, Mrs.
Thank
Joseph?
you. Thank you, Mr. Sherman, for your presentation. Just a question regarding, how do I want to ask this? I know you mentioned should this go through, the city can use this to build other spaces, other open spaces throughout the city. Have those other spaces been identified? Possibly? Like, are there projects or areas in the city that have?
Yeah, we don't have a lot.
No, I would say no.
Okay.
Because right now the code doesn't require the city to create these civic open spaces. That is the responsibility of the developer. So if this does pass, it would probably make sense to have identified target areas to develop. But again, land acquisition is, expensive and can be timely. So it would require, a capital project in itself just to identify and then build and maintain the civic open space. But I would say as of today, there aren't identified areas for this purpose. Again, other than our park system, which is pretty much built out and is focused on updating and maintaining existing land. The Parks Master Plan doesn't necessarily have a bold expansion goal in terms of creating new parks. It's more about renovating and maintaining our existing park system. So the short answer is no,
No.
at least
Okay.
not that staff is aware of at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I got some questions for you.
I'll
Can
do
you
my
bring up
best.
the pictures of the Berkeley Landing and the other properties?
Okay, Berkeley
Okay,
Landing.
that's the first one. I'm a proponent of open space for our public to enjoy. Like you said earlier, when you went by, there were people using the open space. Just imagine if we give you that in lieu of, you'll have maybe a quarter of that because the developer would use most of it for the use of their development. Okay? That is the reason in our comp plan, we included, made sure we had open space for our public to use. Now, imagine in the downtown marina, the developers are going to use every little square foot, meet with the city, come up with an arbitrary way of developing a fee schedule between the developer and city staff, not 10% of the project, not 15, an arbitrary, whatever that amount's going to be. It's going to shrink the amount of public open space our citizens have. Not only that, if that money goes into a fund, there's no place in the city that that money is going to be used to create additional public open space or civic areas. So I am not thrilled with taking away more open space to give developers more property for them to build in. Go to the next picture with the other developments. That will be gone because the developer might have looked to expand it a little more. So you'll get a little sidewalk with just maybe a couple of trees. They would have been offered the option in lieu of. And the other photo, this is what it does. See how nice? Now, if we have it in lieu of, that developer would have said, Jesus, I could add another tower. Let's meet with staff. Let's throw 30,000 out there. Staff comes back, let's throw 60,000. These are arbitrary figures because there's no set percentage. So that project there will now encompass the majority of that open and public space. Forget that beautiful tree that's going to be relocated. That's going to be gone because the developer's going to take every square inch of that, and we're not going to get left with any public spaces in this city. Now, imagine that in the marina. You get home from work. It's getting expensive to take the kids out to McDonald's or anything. You want to jump in the car, let's bring them to the downtown marina because they got some beautiful open space down there. We got the waterways, we got nice. Now you're going to squeeze the little bit of public open space to give developers more property to build on. I'm sorry, but like I said, that just blew my mind when I started reading this. And if you look at your disadvantages and advantages, your disadvantages far outweigh the advantages, okay? And it encompasses every step that I just discussed. In addition to the fact of revenue, we don't have space where the city's going to buy. Now, if you're telling me that, hey, we're going to get a percentage of the 10% of the building is going to be in lieu of, and we're going to take that money and we have a vacant lot here and we're going to build a nice little park for our public, then I would say, okay, that's a little bit amenable. We still lose a lot of open space, but that money is just going to sit there because you can't buy the land. The land is just too valuable and it's increasing as we speak. So I am definitely not a happy camper with allowing the developers to take away from the public open space areas. I think I talked enough on this subject.
Very clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Ms. Burgess?
I'm in total 100% agreement with Mr. Fernandez. He basically said everything I had written down and wanted to say as well. But I would like to know who was the council person who suggested this.
The council person from District 4, if I'm not mistaken, Councilman Spiritus.
Okay. So yeah, I am not happy, not in agreement with it for all of the reasons that Mr. Fernandez stated. The disadvantages to the city were just too great, and it just gives the developers more of an opportunity to put more money in their pockets and restrict our residents from full use of the city. So it's going to be a no for me.
Mr. Gallo?
No question.
All right, so we would like to move to a vote.
Yes.
Oh, Ms. Shepherd, I'm sorry, Ms. Shepherd.
Well, I think Mr. Fernandez said it all. It's mind-boggling how we even bring certain things up. Berkeley Landing, I pass by there just about every day. I don't see anybody out there playing. I don't see nobody sitting out there at all. So I never did understand about the open space. But I can't add anything because Mr. Fernandez just took his time and covered it all. And that's why I just like to wait last to hear these people that are really knowledgeable that can put it together way better than me. But I would say no to this particular project. Not at all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, do we go to a motion to vote?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair. I motion that the board recommends denial of the fee in lieu of civic open space for developers in the downtown Marine District.
I second that.
It has been properly moved in second. Chair, are we ready for the vote?
Yes.
Board Member Burgess,
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez,
Yes to deny.
yes to deny. Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Shepherd,
Yes.
Board Member, Chair Wiley.
Yes.
The vote passes to deny.
Mr. Sherman, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
why did Mr. Spirit, because I vaguely remember it, what spearheaded him to even want to bring this to the forefront? Why? What was that about? I can't remember certain things, so if you can kind of refresh my memory of why. That night in council, I kind of remember it vaguely.
I cannot speak for the council person. I do know that on the record and what was stated in the videos, which are available from the council meeting, that he was interested in providing funds for infrastructure, and that's all that comes to mind at the moment. But I would recommend looking at the video from it to hear his sentiments behind making the original request.
What, can you remember the month or
And I'm sorry, in the staff memo for this item, I believe the council meeting that the initial request was made is on there. That date, I believe, is in there. If you give me just a moment, I can, or one of our staff members can pull up that exact date from the agenda packet memo on this item.
would you please? Because the open space, I'm kind of baffled with it when we need infrastructure. I don't see an open space where people go, if they sit, I don't see them. And I'm out all day. But Berkeley Landing and over at in Riviera Beach, the Heron Estates, which they have like open spaces, I don't see them people sitting out there or in the pool. So I'm trying to figure out, why are we going there when we need infrastructure? I don't understand. So maybe I go back and look at the video because it's kind of blurry to me right now.
The date was November 20th, and I do recall it was towards the end of the meeting for, if I'm not mistaken, general board comments, I believe is when the discussion was had.
Yes, I remember, but I don't know what brought or led up to that discussion. What was said before he started asking for this to go on the agenda. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to piggyback on that, Mr. Sermons, for infrastructure, that can no longer be used for infrastructure, correct? So the money, if the council approved it, in lieu of, it cannot be used for infrastructure. So if Mr. Spirit is meant to take a pot of money and use it for infrastructure, well, that was nixed. So again, you can review it yourself, but if it is meant for infrastructure, it's gone. It's a moot point. And then maybe Mr. Spears was not aware of that, but maybe once he's made aware of it, maybe he might change. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. All right, so we can move on to workshop items.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and for the workshop item related to the Florida Code of Ethics training, I would give the floor to Ms. Tara Williams, who is the Human Resources Administrator for the City of Riviera Beach.
Good evening, Chair and Board. The Palm Beach Code of Ethics, Commission of Code of Ethics requires all advisory boards to receive ethics training every 2 years. To ensure that this board and all of our advisory boards are in compliance, what I would like to do is get your email addresses from the staff and coordinate that you all watch the training. The training is about 45 minutes long. I'm going to provide you with the acknowledgement form. Once you have completed watching the training, you would just sign the acknowledgement form and then return it to the staff member. Okay,
Excellent idea.
thank you.
Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, we will, again, after Mrs. Williams is provided with your email addresses, we will get the video to you. And please work with staff. Burley and I will make sure we collect the acknowledgement forms that are being provided to you now. We will make sure we collect those from you so that we can have documentation that you completed the training via the video that will be emailed.
So I don't have to do this again, correct?
Just don't fail.
This, I've already had it, I passed. Should we just bring this to the next board meeting? Or is that too late?
I believe that will be too late. There's a deadline at the end of this month, and
Okay.
I think our next meeting will be too late to collect those. So
Okay.
we will need to work with you to get you to complete that and either drop it off to our offices or scan it and email it to us so we can get it to HR.
Okay.
I need it by the 20th, so that's next week of this time.
And who do you want to scan to? Ms. Weathers or yourself or?
Yes.
This one.
On here it says YouTube. Is it a YouTube video that? It is. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, oh, thank you again, Ms. Williams. On to number 9, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Actually, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
we did have a additional item for 8B.
great B, right,
Yes.
correct. Notification of site requirements.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Scott Evans. I'm the Assistant Director of Development Services. At our last Planning and Zoning Board meeting, the board brought up some issues with the notice requirements of a site plan. And so staff has done some research, which we would like to present to you tonight. We looked at the site plan application notice requirements, both in our code. And then we also looked at some other communities to help facilitate this discussion for you tonight. We looked at the public notice requirements for site plan applications which is a public hearing for a major site plan. And we looked at that for the City of Green Acres, City of Palm Beach Gardens, City of West Palm Beach, and then we also have our code below. There are several things that were mentioned at the meeting. One is posting of signs on the site. We found that Green Acres did not do that Palm Beach Gardens did do that. West Palm Beach required a posting of the sign, and for a site plan, Riviera Beach did not. We also looked at mailed notice. All of the 3 other cities that we looked at did require mailed notice for a variety of different time periods in advance. One was 10 days, one was 14 days before. But Riviera Beach for a site plan did not include mailed notice requirements. And then the last item was notice in the newspaper. The City of Green Acres said that they would advertise them in the newspaper or on their website. Palm Beach Gardens did have a code requirement to advertise it in the newspaper 10 days in advance. West Palm Beach also had a requirement for 10 days in advance. The Riviera Beach Code for a site plan did not have a requirement to advertise in the newspaper, although of course it is on our website. Many of the projects that move through the public hearing process have other related applications or code requirements that require the types of notice that I just went through. This includes posting of signs, newspaper advertisements, mailed notices surrounding properties. A lot of the major projects include land use changes, rezonings, right-of-way abandonments, or special exception requests. Any of those would trigger some of those public notice items. However, the one at the last meeting was a large project, and as a site plan only, it specifically did not trigger any of those notices. And when we looked at how the other cities would have treated a site plan in that case, we found that they were quite different, similar to the board's concern that was brought up at the meeting. So tonight we have brought this back as a discussion item, which we would like to get your feedback on as we move this through the process to consider potentially an amendment in the future to change this in the code. I've identified all of the cities have their own, including Riviera Beach, have their own, what font is the sign? How big is the sign? What does the mailing notice have to include? How large is the newspaper advertisement? Riviera Beach has all of those requirements similar to the other cities. They're all a little bit different, and that's in our section 31.4, which governs public hearings. Our standard is 15 days, which is actually more than the standard in some of those other cities, and our mailing distance is 300 feet. So I think the feedback we're looking tonight from the Planning and Zoning Board is whether your feedback on what you would like to do with those three different specific items, and if in fact your recommendation is to match what the other cities are doing within the constraints of our own code. So at this point, I would just be looking for your individual questions, comments, feedback. I believe that I was surprised to see that our code differed so much from some of the other cities, and my recommendation that we do make some changes to bring us closer in line with the notice requirements of the other cities.
Okay, I guess I'll start on the opposite side. Mr. Gallen, you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment that we should change. I would like to go with the West Palm Beach code. But, there has to be some type of notification on any large development like that we saw in the last meeting. There should be notification no matter what. So I think we should go with the same codes West Palm Beach uses.
So matching up with the 14 days, and 10 days for the posting site, mail notice, and newspaper?
It don't necessarily have to be the days. We probably have enough days as far as notification that we already have in our code. If staff think it should be longer, then I think maybe we need to change the whole thing to 14 days instead of, because I think ours right now is 10.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that our mailing notice is 10 days in advance. It's 15. And the mail out is also 15 days. So the board can make whatever direction you want us to pass along. Staff's recommendation would be to decide whether or not we're going to require the posting of the sites, whether we're going to require mailed notices, and whether we're going to require newspaper advertisements. If we created, for example, if we used West Palm Beach's 14-day notice, Then we would have rezonings that require 15-day notice, and we would have land use, they would be different. The recommendation would be to keep what the city code provides as far as how many days or the distance of mailouts. But we do think that it's important that we include some of these other notice requirements for site plans. They're all currently in no at the bottom. It's not showing anything. But our recommendation is that we take some of those items and recommend a yes in accordance with the regulations that already exist in our code that just simply don't apply to site plan at the moment.
Chair.
Yes.
And that's fine with me. It's just like I said, as long as we include site plans or whatever site information that needs to be passed along to the public, as far as I'm concerned, all of them should be a notification, however you want to word it. But I think the citizens should know exactly what's going on in their neighborhood, regardless.
Absolutely. All right, Ms. Burgess.
Can you go back to the prior slide? I want to look back at the distance.
500 feet radius, 500 feet,
Oh,
300 feet.
500 feet. Oh, yeah.
I do prefer the 500 feet versus the 300. I'm good with the days remaining at 15 and 15.
10 for the newspaper.
And then for the
10 for the newspaper. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that, but additionally the posting on site. So that's my recommendations. Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez?
Just to clarify, it wasn't just a site plan. There was also a text amendment, which if it would have been approved, any other developer within the DM zone would have been able to get away with cutting back on public space because they could have used that text amendment. So it wasn't just the fact that you would have woken up in a year from now and find a 20-story structure next to your location without any noticing, but it was also the text amendment which would have been applicable to the entire city. That was one of my pet peeves, which is why I brought it up. So I know there was a lot, site plan allows text amendment, and very clearly, if this passes and it passes city council, can anyone use it within that district, that zone? Yeah. So you can tear one of the old buildings down in the DM and they can use that text amendment for some other property down the line. Yep. That's why Riviera Beach citizen residents have to be notified. So I agree with let's go with the 10 days for the posting, which is what we have now. Keep that in line. Keep the 15 days for the mailing. Radius of 500 feet. And then in the newspaper and our website, keep whatever we already have on, I think it's 10 days. I'm not sure. I don't want to quote. Well, it's 10 days, correct?
I believe it's 15 days.
50, that's even better. And we include the 15 days, noticing. And then just keep in mind that if we ever have another property, even though they're if there's a text amendment that will affect the entire city, once we do this, it should nullify the next one. But if just in case, just make sure we keep in mind, if the text amendment that's going to affect the entire city, we need to notice people and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Would that be fair?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do need to let residents know about the changes coming. I think for that particular text amendment, that would be advertised as an ordinance, which would be advertised in the newspaper, be placed on our website. The challenge becomes when it affects, say, part of the city or the whole city, to mail notice to that number of different property owners, of course, becomes very cost prohibitive. Maybe not necessarily for the city, but for a private developer, it essentially makes it very difficult for them to even propose a change to the code if they have to mail notice to 20,000.
They could post it on our website in the newspaper.
Yes, sir.
They don't have to spend $1,000 per block on mailing. They can just post it on the website, post in the newspaper so that people are aware of what's going on with your city. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Ms. Joseph?
I also agree with site signage. We can stick with the 15 days as well. Mail notice, 15 days, and then newspaper or city website for notice as well.
Ms. Shepherd?
I remember years ago, they used to say they did door knockers. No such thing. It was church knockers on our car. A lot of people did not get it. My rent, my ward is included in my rent, so I get no notice. The only notice I get if one of my neighbors start talking about it, and everybody don't go on the website. I don't. I have to rely on people talking to me. So what get me, Mr. Sherman, is if I go through there and I see that yellow sign, I pull over and I have the opportunity to get out and look at it. A lot of people don't even understand about the yellow signs. This is why I was so adamant about where was the sign, where was the address. And I just found this piece of property, I think last week when my daughter took me back there with her locator. I don't think this fair to want to build something. I'll talk about my neighbor, Lakeview Shore, Lakeview Park, I'm sorry. When Rybovich wanted to build, it was a shock to their system because they really didn't get a notice. When they knew anything, people were humping down on them and demanding to let them know that they want to build in that area. Out of respect, not only to the island, but to the mainland, with Lone Pine and all those people, they should be kept abreast, and then they won't come in here so upset. And this is why I didn't want to be a part of it. I have neighbors, when I walk in the neighborhood, stop me and ask me about certain things. If I don't know, I don't know. But if I saw the yellow sign, then I can read it and I can explain it to them. Yes, they should receive notices. They deserve a notice. You're getting ready to build in their neighborhood where they become very comfortable. To do that, I was shocked that this whole place, I came prepared because I thought this place would be full last week. But then I realized nobody saw that particular item, Mr. Sherman. So I think out of respect, whether it's 15 days, 10 days, or whatever, we owe the residents of the city of Riviera Beach to understand that they're requesting to build on that particular site. They are given the opportunity to come to planning and zoning. A lot of them don't even know what planning and zoning is. They have no idea. They read it, but because they're not with your web or they don't read the newspaper or for whatever reason, I think we owe them, if they don't, I guess you do mail out. So I don't know. I just think it has to be a better way to allow the gentleman that was over from the building where the Winn-Dixie was across the street. He said he didn't even know what the yellow signs were. He said he had no idea. Nobody talked to them, and they're in the neighborhood now. They absolutely knew nothing. They didn't get any notices. And that's not fair. Just because they live across the street, they still would be affected by the traffic because you have to go down Lakeshore, Silver Beach Road. They will be affected. And they were very upset. They did Dollar General. They were out of town, so they didn't even know Dollar General because there was no sign there, they said. They deserve a sign, and they deserve the door knockers or whatever, because everybody rent. Sometimes the water bill is with the rent, so you don't know what's going on in the city. So I apologize for last week, but I just saw red flags go up, and I realized that I just didn't want to be a part of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
On the mailings, the developer could say they sent out 300 feet, 500 feet, whatever we come up with, 500 feet. Do we follow up? Is it certified mail? Is it regular mail? Do they give us the list of who they mailed it to? How does it work?
Both. They do have to give us a list, a copy of the mailers and the affidavit that they completed it and by what date.
And nobody from staff just knocks on like 3 out of the 20 door just to verify that somebody did get the mailing? We're taking it on their word that they're mailing it, but we don't have any backup or secondary method of verifying?
They provide us the list that they use for the mailer, the affidavit, the letter. In most cases, we get return mail for when it, whatever addresses is bounced back from. So generally, we do have evidence that they sent the mailer out. But I suppose there's a rare occasion where we don't get anything bounced back, but it's pretty common. So yes, usually we have evidence through the mail system.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry, but do you still put those notices on your water bill?
We don't insert anything in the water bills, no.
Well, okay, so you're sending notices out to the residents, is that what you're saying?
Within 300 feet, for what's required in our code right now, within 300 feet, they receive a mailer separate from their water bill.
Mr. Sherman, we never got any notices in that neighborhood. Like, I can only speak for my neighborhood. Lakeview Shore, we never, ever, how they found out, I have no idea. We never got in, at least I didn't. And I'm out at the mailbox every day. And I walk across the street and I asked one of my neighbors, did you get a, and they said no. The only reason why we knew was the yellow signs was up. So I hate to tell you, but that's not true.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would say that our buffer area is 300 feet, and they do have to give us the GIS capture area showing all of the highlighted parcels and the addresses of what's in that 300 feet. 300 feet isn't as much as many people would think. A lot of, and even with that project, persons would say, well, I'm just around the corner from it, but that can often mean that you're beyond 300 feet, and that's why you wouldn't have received a mailer. But based on that, if the recommendation is to change it from 300 feet to 500 feet, it would be a wider area of people who receive mailers. But yes, we do verify that they complete the mailer, but 300 feet often leaves out people who think they are closer than they actually are.
Okay, I get it. But we all are affected, whether it's 300 feet or 500 feet. We were affected because you're talking about 22nd court. I'm on 23rd court. I'm right around the corner. And going out of 20th Street to, 20th Street where the light is at, we are all affected going out of that complex. So that means that with Rivovich building or whatever, at least I was affected because that's the area I go out. With the trucks coming in and out, it affects our roads where we're at. So I think out of respect for not only us, but even Lone Pine, going over there, listening to them, some of them didn't even get a letter. And I just think this, and I'm not saying you're not doing your job. I don't know. I'm just saying just the ones talking to me, you say they never got a notice. So if it's 300 feet, and let's use Lone Pine, where there's a cluster of houses, how do you calculate that to 300 feet? I mean, I don't get the geometry or whatever of a neighborhood like that those people did not get a notice. I'm just saying that it's got to be a better way how we allow people that's going to be affected by a building, the dust, the dirt, the traffic. They deserve to know what's going on in that neighborhood. Lakeview Park, we didn't have the option until it started spiraling down and people talking, neighbors talking, that we knew anything that was going. It just gives a lack of not allowing people to live their daily lives, not to be affected. We know, in fact, I know that Rivovich has the right to build, but out of respect to the other neighbors that's been there way longer than me, that has raised their children there, that they don't have opportunity to know that you're coming in or they're coming in to build or whatever we're going to do. So I haven't seen a notice. Not at all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you. Is there, if a questions? Any additional? Oh, And can we make can I make a motion for the adjustments to the 15 days posting, 15 days mailing, and 15 days for the newspaper, and also increase from 300 to 500 feet.
Add website to newspaper, Mr. Chair?
Right,
Our
I said
newspaper and website.
Newspaper and website.
And Mr. Chair, to clarify, you're calling for a motion because the chair cannot make the motion.
I
Thank you.
tried. Someone do it for me, please.
Well, I will motion that the chair just recently said the same thing. Do I need to repeat? Exactly 500 feet of the property, 15 days for signage, 15 days for the mail notices, and the newspaper and our website notification, 15 days.
A second.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask a question. 15 days for the newspaper. How many people you know get the newspapers with them being so expensive? And who use the website? I mean,
I guess we just use it to cover all bases in this situation. Because if anything, I think, well, for the newspaper and the website, but I mean, now putting something on Facebook, like a Riviera Beach Facebook or something like that, and everyone always gets those ads there. So that'd be something to think about also. But like you said, we still have to cover every base possible just to make sure that everyone is notified.
We'll still have the large, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. We'll still have the large yellow sign
well, that
on the
I,
property.
well, okay, that's
So
a
that-
plan.
Yes, that's part of the
that's a
15-day
plan.
posting of site signage, those big yellow signs for on the property.
Okay, that's a plan. But who reads the newspaper? I mean, I don't go on the web. I'm just trying to clarify, Mr. Chair, that when people are talking, you can say, well, go to the website or go get a newspaper. Why is newspapers? It's kind of unheard. But 500 feet, I think, would do for me.
So we got a first and we got a second.
It has been properly motioned and second. Chair, are we ready for the vote?
Yes.
Board Member Burgess,
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Shepherd,
Yes.
Chair Wiley.
Yes.
The vote passes with unanimous vote, Chair.
All right. On to public comments. Do we have any?
No, Chair, we have no public comment cards.
All right. On to general discussion and staff updates.
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any correspondence by the board? Well, I have a correspondence actually. Again, I just wanted to. I know we had him for a brief time here as one of our planning and zoning board brothers, but congratulations to him for winning his election for District 3 City Commission. So congratulations to Mr. Bruce Guyton. We're definitely going to miss his expertise and his professionalism
District
here.
1,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, thank you, District 1. That's right, Shirley's District 3. Thank you. But just want to read a congratulations to Mr. Guyton, and also want to give a congratulations to Mrs. Shirley Lanier also for winning her District 3 also. So just wanted to give a congratulations to them. I know it was a hard fought race and everything, and like I said again, congratulations, both well deserved. I also wanted to, while I was doing my process serving job over in the industrial area, I never even realized that the K1 Speed Indoor Go-Kart has been operating for 4 months now. Did anyone know that? I mean, it's actually a great facility. It's a big facility, and they're actually operating there, and they have tournaments there and everything. And I was like, well, I didn't see any advertising for it. I was talking to the owner, and he never advertised for it. And I said, would it be okay if I mention this at the planning and zoning board? He was like, yeah, fine. But he was like, we're just trying to get on our feet. But he's been operating for 4.5, 5 months now, and it's a great facility. So if you ever get a chance, I can give you guys the address to it. But it's a great facility, and he has some very good rates, even though he wouldn't give me a discount.
Hopefully he's advertising it for Riviera Beach.
But he,
Well,
that's the thing, he hasn't done it at all. That's what he was stating. He didn't do any advertisement.
We agreed to that. If you recall, he had West Palm Beach, and we told him, no, advertise Riviera Beach, advertise your business. So I guess he must have forgotten the recommendations.
Now, bring up also, thanks a lot. When I looked up the address, because I wanted to get the correct name of it, and when you look at it, it is advertised as West Palm Beach and not Riviera Beach in that location. It's definitely Riviera Beach. So is that something we can change, or, because it's zip code 33404, but it is in
In
Riviera Beach.
And we pointed that out because when I checked, it was on his website as West Palm.
West
Yes.
Palm Beach.
If you could, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
If you could bring to staff's attention where you saw the West Palm Beach, because we have
That's fine.
already engaged code compliance with that particular business, because it was brought to staff's attention that on the website, and I believe Google Maps, it was listed as West Palm Beach. So we engaged the owner of the business, and they made changes. If you could let us know where you saw that, we could verify if the changes they made are still there, or if anything changed since then, so we can follow up as appropriately with code compliance.
It's on their Google. That's on the Google map. You gotta go to their actual website. Okay. The website. 1 second, I'm just thinking they removed
I'm
it.
sorry, I got to answer it.
Wake me up when it's Android. Where's their website?
K1,
Thing is crazy. Okay,
www.k1speed.com.
website, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Part of West Palm.
So Florida, under their locations tab. one
West
of
Palm
the
Beach.
West Palm
locations.
Beach.
It's on their website. When
The
you go
webpage.
into their, Ms. Burgess, you just called it out. I'm sorry, I can't see it on this phone. You called out the website. We went on their website, which is k1speed.com. And if you scroll down, they have the hours of operation. They have the address, 7970 Central Industrial Drive North, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33404.
And it also appears we'll probably have to make updates to the national website because it lists the state and the cities, and it lists West Palm as
Which we
well.
brought that attention to them when we approved it on their national website. So that's strike two, Mr. Sermons.
Against me?
Let's sign up.
Failure to follow 4.5 months, Mr. Sermons,
We
after we told them.
West Palm Beach newsletter.
But I think, Mr. Chair, what happens, 33404, and you all got to remember this, over on Haverhill, where they get their mail or something's kind of split, so you have to use 33 something. It's another code that will pick up just Riviera Beach. This is where they get away with it. Because when I call Walgreens and put in my medication, I said 33404, and they said West Palm Beach, I said 33404, I'm in Riviera Beach. And then they start having me to read out that other little piece with the 33404. It's another little piece that would dictate where we at. This is why
I
they
mean,
get
the
away with it.
extension, the
It's an
zip code
extension.
extension.
It's an
Like mine
extension.
is 2947, but I always correct that because that's the difference of where those dollars go, those
X
federal
dollars,
dollars.
right.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes,
so we
yes.
don't get credit for it. It goes to the city of West
West
Palm
Palm
instead of
Beach.
Riviera.
That's why
I
I go to
correct
West
it on
Palm Beach.
everything.
And the Rapids used to do the very same thing until the city stayed on them. It used to be West Palm Beach for a very long time.
They can change it on their website. It's very easy to fix. And
Yeah.
on their national
No,
website.
if you start charging them, they change it right away.
Yes, as far as zip codes, 33404, you can write West Palm or Riviera, and it will be routed properly to the right address. Either city can be used for that zip code. So that is more of a postal item. But as far as the website and how they advertise their business, we have a city ordinance that requires, as well as conditions for the site plan approval, that requires they advertise the business as Riviera Beach for things that they can control, as opposed to the postal codes in that system. So again, I will follow up with code compliance. Again, we have engaged them once where they did make the requested changes, but if you just went on the site and observed it as such, then clearly something has changed. So we will re-engage with the business through code compliance to make sure we get accuracy in terms of the advertisement of location of the business.
Chair.
Yes.
down here.
Yes, sir.
I just noticed that Dan Calloway, that we have made changes at the park. We have an outdoor skating rink.
We do?
And I don't know why the citizens don't know about this. I went by there, because of the voting, and found out that there's an outdoor skating rink there. They've moved the basketball courts to the rear, and that big old open space where the basketball courts used to be, they've made it a skating rink. And it's free to the public. So I'm wondering why nobody has notified residents that this is available. I know that planning and zoning don't have anything to do with that. That will be under Parks and Recreation most likely. But we need to do a better job of letting our residents know that we have this facilities and this stuff available. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
how long has this been going on? Because I sit on Park and Recreation, and I haven't heard them discuss anything like that in a meeting.
Now,
So-
one thing I do know is that, because I know I had a friend and one of my kids, a couple kids in the neighborhood, that little area there was actually made for the skating, that little skating loop there. And I think it was about maybe a year ago, they were having like skate parties there on Saturday. So I don't know if they're still utilizing this as that, or no one's having parties or having little skate parties or whatever. But I do know they were utilizing it at one point, or maybe about a year, maybe year and a half ago. Because you can hear the music and everybody carrying their skates up there. But they haven't done it lately though. It's been a long time. All right, and again,
Chair.
yes.
Right here. I just have one
Yes,
thing.
ma'am.
I just wanted to remind everyone that property taxes are due March 31st. So make sure you pay your property taxes.
Paid.
Just go check. Make sure
Mine are
there's no
done.
delinquents. Good job, Ms. Joseph. That's it.
I gotta get mine done. All right. And also, again, this is another comment on the K1 go-kart thing. The owner walked me through, gave me a tour of the facility, and it's a nice facility. It's a very good facility, and he has everything, that's all the safety precautions and everything set up for the kids and everything. And he also provides, like for example, if you're really a race enthusiast, you can join a club and you go around and like race like you do with the Daytona 500 or something like that, and you'll be doing that like every week and everything, and he win prizes and all kind of stuff like that. So like I said, he kind of set it up to where it's really good. So it'd be great for the people in the city to be able to go there and support that. And if we get this changed to Riviera Beach, then maybe we can get a little extra money coming into the city through just I guess property taxes or whatever we can. But it's a good facility and everything. And I want to ask one question about the Palm Beach County Code of Ethics training acknowledgement. On here where we have legal name and then it says employee identification number. What is the employee identification number? Because I don't think that's asking for the social security number, is it?
No.
Just put NA and put planning and zoning board like we did last time, right?
That's correct. Staff does have to do this training as well, so it would apply to city staff members, but board members would not have a
Got it. That's
ID
what I'm
number.
making sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's our salary?
All right, so that's correspondence. So let's go with the planning and zoning board comment. The upcoming planning and zoning board meeting, the next one will be March 27th. That's correct.
Correct.
All right, so anyone has a idea or want to make a motion for adjournment?
All right, motion to adjourn at 7:57 PM.
Second.
Second, third. I've really going on time ago.
Thank you, guys. Great meeting.
So the board retreat at
Mr.
K1.
K1 board.
Compliance, that it was us that told them about K1. I don't want to go into K1 and say it was code compliance. I read the little code card and the